Hey there, hunters. Welcome back to the Gunners Guild. Today we have the patch notes for the second DLC for Remnant 2, The Forgotten Kingdom. Sorry about any audio issues and whatnot, and Mother Nature's trying to kill me. My allergies are going insane lately. But anyway, these patch notes are absolutely huge, and damn near everything is getting touched in some way. So I do want to preface this with a few disclaimers before I begin, because I haven't seen these patch notes yet. First is that I find the current state of Remnant 2 meta be kind of boring, as it's mostly just stacking crit or stacking dots pretty much for any build. And I believe we're going to be getting a decent shakeup here just by the entire length of the patch notes and by little hints and stuff Tragic been, dropping in the discords. So I fully expect, meta nerfs, meaning crit and dot, and who knows what else. Though I'm unsure how much of that specifically is going to get hit. But any shakeup is actually fine by me at this point. So because these patch notes are so huge, I'm going to try and do this relatively fast, which is still going to be pretty slow. And I'm going to talk about some of the more important things. I'm definitely not going to bother covering every single little item change, but I will try to do most of it. Also note that I'm going to go into this with the assumption that everything is written works properly, which may not be the case, but there's no point in going in with bad faith here. Also, I will try to wrap up my overall thoughts and changes to builds and stuff at the end once I've read through everything, and I might separate that into its own small video. And so this is going to be mostly just text on the page, so feel free to just listen if you want or follow along, that's fine too. And then the last thing is that this is the press release version of the patch notes, so it may have been changed slightly by launch, so there might be a few things here and there that are different. But with that out of the way, I'm going to get started and hopefully we can get through this just before my allergies, full-blown attack me again. So anyway, so we're going to start on this thing, and it looks like we have some general notes here. We have some quality of life melee stuff. Should be easier to go melee after like evasions and using ladders and stuff, which is pretty cool. Max movement speed cap is now 200% instead of 150. That's awesome. Zooming builds are going to be much better. We've had so many items that scale with movement speed, but now we can actually put a lot of that to use because it was really easy to hit the cap before. And I'm wondering if this counts as all movement speed, like sprinting, crouching, sliding, everything. So then if that includes ADS speed, 200% ADS speed, kind of a lot. Then you can avoid most attacks while still shooting. That's going to be really strong. So if we can get 200% ADS speed, then movement stacking is actually going to be really, really good for DPS uptime on bosses. Bleed status is going to be having the HP regen of Empathy and Regenerator, and that's okay. Regenerator would be more noticeable, and I mean, I like the buff, don't get me wrong here, but I don't think it's that significant. It does give Bleed a secondary use besides just being for damage, but honestly, I don't think most players are even going to notice that, but I mean, I'm not going to be mad about it. It's a cool change. Moving on, slow status now counts as a status, I guess. Probably for things like the Ahane Crystal and such, which is weird because I thought that was always the case. I went under the assumption that slow always worked, but I guess not. And obviously, it's not an elemental status. Moving on here, expose is 15% damage now. I think the only item in the game that actually is applying expose is the amulet, the Birthright of the Lost, and that only applies on a perfect dodge to one target. So odd change. It's now 15% additive bonus instead of 24%. It's not multiplicative, which is odd. They said they might make it multiplicative, but I thought it was always multiplicative. 15% additive is pretty bad. I'm not really sure who's going to use a 15% additive neck, especially with that being like a condition attached to it. So, yeah, that seems pretty awful. Moving on, looks like we have a larger target box for the target range, so that's great. Maybe we can finally test Starshot spam and actually get a good DPS counter for that. Always good changes there. I like that. Looks like we have some trait reworks, which are always welcome. Okay, so resonance and amplitude are going to be, combined into one trait now, which is going to cover everything, which is going to be awesome. But now we just have to figure out what is actually considered an AoE, because before, a lot of things like did or didn't work with it. So good change. So we'll just have to go and test everything for that. We also got only one movement speed trait, so Wayfarer and Swiftness are the same. Again, great. I don't think anyone actually picked Wayfarer anyway. And then in their place, there's actually two new traits for where you would pick up Wayfarer and Residence. So I think Wayfarer was in Root Earth. That was actually during like the one siege right before, not Cancer, Venom. I think that was where that was. And Resonance is in Narud over in the Dormant Nerudian facility where you have to do the co-op thing and get gassed. But there's going to be two new traits that aren't even listed here, so we're going to figure out what they are. I hope it's something like mod duration or melee charge speed or something. I I think at this point, getting any 2 traits is going to be great because we didn't use those before. Okay, so that's the core stuff out of the way. Not too much, but so far so good. I love the 2 new traits. Now we're gonna get into the archetype stuff, which I hope we get a lot of changes here. Hunter got a slight nerf, it looks like. Hunter's mark in general is now only 10% crit instead of 15%. And again, I assumed a lot of crit stuff is going to be hit, and that's fine. Hunter's focus actually has no critical damage bonus. Big oof there. But now it gets 0.75 seconds to a grace period, so you can keep it up. Like, so if you like neutral dodge, you can keep it active. So that's actually pretty huge. I mean, the uptime on that skill is not really good on bosses in general, but with a almost 1 second full grace period, you should be able to keep that up. I would imagine almost the entire fight. So it's actually probably going to be better than it was before, even without the crit damage bonus. And that's it for Hunters, it looks like. Slight bat to the knees, but it seems like it's going to be okay still. Again, I really use Hunter's Mark over Hunter's Focus. So, I mean, essentially my Hunter stuff lost 5% crit, but I don't know. I might go back to Hunter's Focus now. Moving on to Challenger. Looks like slight Challenger nerfs as well. You now only have 5% crit instead of 10%, which was always active regardless now. So that's great because I was actually afraid they're going to fix the bug. The way before crit, the 10% crit they had for Challenger was active regardless of the radius out, which, you know, by the wording and stuff, sounds like, you know, it would drop off the same with their damage on the little aura they have. So this should actually even out. So if we have 5% on all ranges regardless, rather than if they had fixed the bug and had, you know, 10% out to, you know, their 10-meter range or whatever. So that's actually fine. Rampage lost 5% fire rate, and that's not a big deal. So Challenger's mostly intact, pretty much unscathed. I get the feeling that 100% crit, though, is going to be a lot harder or impossible to get if, you know, everything got hit a little bit on the crit side. So that's going to be annoying. But overall, but it seems okay so far. Moving on, we got Handler archetype. Dog gets 50% more armor. That's awesome. But that's it? Okay. I always found that the dog just didn't do any significant damage, and I was hoping that the skills would get reworked in all honesty. Like, Guard Dog can't pull aggro from bosses, which is a shame, and I really wish he did. And Attack Dog actually doesn't do much more damage compared to the other dogs because their base damage is so low. So, you know, him being 20% stronger than the other ones isn't really doing anything for you. The fact that their bleed is unique, I don't really know if that means. I don't know if that means like their bleed counts as your bleed now, not a summoner bleed. So I wonder if you can, I don't know, scale it with your bleed stuff. I'll have to test that out. But yeah, not too many changes for Handler. That's kind of lame. I think Handler is still gonna be best paired with Engineer. But I still don't see it being too useful outside of that. I don't know, maybe with Invoker it'll be better because Invoker's skill based too. Okay, Gunslinger. Sidewinder got reworked, it looks like. Base duration is now 60 seconds, and the cooldown's 50 seconds. Oh, what? Hold on, let me read this. Okay, but now attaining ammo reduces time by 10 seconds. So every time you swap, basically, it's a 10-second loss. So on paper, by default, it looks like the total effective time is going to be cut significantly. So it's like once you do 6 swaps, it's going to fall off. That does seem to be like a big nerf, considering we had 12 full seconds of uptime before, and you can definitely get more than, you know, 12 swaps in that time. But actually, so thinking about this, that means we can still use things effectively that have like larger magazines. So like shotguns and double barrel, because we can do full mag dump and then swap and then lose 10 seconds because it's not necessarily on swap, it's on ammo gain, which is when you swap. So I think the change was to prevent like single shot weapons like Spore Bloom going apeshit on bosses for 12 full seconds. But now it opens the door for medium-sized mag weapons to be useful. And with a base 60-second duration, which is really high, you should be able to get it close to like 90 seconds with the new Invoker trait for skill duration and some of the other skill items like what's that ring? There's that 25% skill duration ring, that thing. That could be useful. Because if you can get like 90 seconds on the duration and then cut the skill cooldown by like 75%, I mean, you should be down to like 15 seconds. And then I don't know if it actually cools down while it's active. I don't think it does, but I feel like the uptime on this could be really good. So it might be worse now for single shot weapons, but we might be able to build around an infinite Sidewinder build. That'll be interesting. Okay. I'm interested in that one. That's cool change. I'm okay with that because Spore Bloom Sidewinder was ridiculous. I'm actually really surprised that Bulletstorm didn't get touched either. All right, moving on to summoner changes. Come on, no whammies. All right. Prime got changed. Oh no. Okay, so we don't have the enrage anymore when they deal damage, or takes damage, but that kind of sucks because I really like the atonement fold setup. Because when you had that ring on, you're always taking damage, so your minions were always enraged. So now we don't have enraged minions when they take damage. That sucks. But now sacrifice is going to be increased based upon minion health. That's going to be hard to use, I think. It doesn't say how much. Obviously, it's probably going to be more damage when the minions are at full HP, so it kind of plays with the sacrifice cooldown refresh thing. But they didn't say how much damage it's going to be, so I hope it's significant. Flyer sacrifice is now skill and explosive damage scaling, so it matches all the other minions. But the damage is reduced, which sucks because I didn't think it was that great before. I'm not sure how much, but it's reduced. We're going to need to see actual numbers on that to see if it's any good. More armor on the minions is welcome. Won't say no to that, but without the enraged, permanent minions pretty much took a huge hit because it doesn't say that minions are actually any stronger. I wonder if sacrifice skill builds will be decent now. They didn't change the blast radius either on the minions, which is a huge problem for them because they just also don't hit very many things. But I'm gonna have to see and test in game what the actual numbers are. That's a little disappointing because Summoner was already pretty bad. All right, moving on. Engineer. Okay, base crit damage is increased. Good, because it's 110% before. Good, because the crits didn't do anything. So now we have a default 150%. Thank God. Unfortunately, I think crit is getting gutted this patch, so we'll see how that goes. But that's still good change. Good change. Turret armor is good. Don't care about that too much, but that's still good. Reduced movement speed for heavy carry. I'm glad they did this because it was actually faster to heavy carry rather than not, which was odd. Didn't make any sense. So now it's going to be slower, which is fine. It's totally fine. The iframes on Engineer Heavy Carry are insane anyway. Reduce crit from 10 to 5%. Not surprised at all. I think every single thing that does crit is going to get hit across the board, which is fine. Vulcan's turret does more damage. It used to deal 40% of its base damage as a turret. Now it's going to be 50%, so it's got a slight buff there. So between that, the previous range damage buff, and this crit change, I think Turret Engineer might be decent now. We'll have to go and try that out, but I mean, it's definitely better than it was before. Flamethrower dot are 3 times stronger, which is great. It was terrible before, but I do hope that the dot scales with skill and fire damage. But glad to see that they're going to be adjusting turrets in the future too by the notes here. So overall, good changes for Engineer. I really like Engineer. It's one of the most fun archetypes in my opinion. So cool changes there. All right, moving on. Archon. Big list. Okay. What happened to my baby Archon? Hold on. Okay. Prime perk. No longer grants increased mod generation. Really? We lost 100% mod generation? Okay. We now have a passive 15 mod power per second or 30 mod power per second if we use a mod, if I'm reading this right. Looks like it's base level then max level, so it's going to scale from like 15 to 30 per second, if that's right. It looks like 30 mod power per second. So that's all for the prime perk. So we just straight up lost 100% mod generation. Okay. So let's think about this real quick. Oh god, so if we use a mod, we get 30 mod power per second for both of our mods. If we use Burden of the Follower, the mod gen trait, that's plus 70%, which should net us about 50 mod power per second on mod use for 10 seconds. So we can restore a total of 500 mod power for both equipped mods over 10 seconds, not including mod power gained from dealing damage. I mean, obviously that's a big nerf, but I actually don't know how much mod power we're going to be generating strictly on mod damage who deals. So I'm going to have to test this one. It may actually be like a death nail for mod swapper and mod spam builds. Hopefully we do get some good mod changes too, because that mod power generation affected literally everything we did. Our base generation from dealing damage, mod generated from like mutators, other trinkets that added mod power for whatever reason, that all got, doubled essentially. So that's going to be a huge hit to the total mod generation. God, okay. Power leak also got hit, so it's half the mod power gain on relic use. It went down from 200 to 100. Big oof. Not a big deal for me because I rarely use my relics anyways. But just because that also got hit by the prime perk loss as well. So, with the prime perk before, that was actually like 400 mod power, but now it's down to 100, so that sucks. Reality Rune now generates mod power in the bubble. It doesn't say how much, so it's gonna be hard to say if that's good or not. because Chaos Gate already provided you with a lot of damage and mod generation. Never mind, because it looks like the Chaos Gate also got nerfed, and the mod power generation and the damage. So, okay. I mean, it was really good before. It's probably still okay because it's just a 35% damage ring, which is kind of uninteresting because it's just worse than Death Wish at this point because Death Wish was on the player. Now this is you have to sit in the ring. Granted, of course, Chaos Gate worked in groups, so it was giving more damage to everybody. But all right, whatever. So, but for single player, gutted. Havoc form, big changes to Havoc form. Okay, look at all this stuff. It looks like pretty much everything about Havoc form appears to be better, except directly increasing its damage. So using it is going to be faster, exiting it is going to be faster. It's not going to refund some skill cooldown when exiting, which is great. I've been asking for that since the beginning, so we can go in and out of it much easier now. It reduced the duration cost of using all the abilities. Awesome. That was terrible before too. So pretty much everything besides direct damage is better. It moves faster, you keep momentum, it exits fast. Yeah, everything. So Havoc Form's probably back on the menu, it seems. So those are good changes there. I'm not sure if it's going to be a viable source of like primary damage or building, your build around it by comparison, but it should feel significantly better to use regardless. So perhaps Havoc loot builds are going to be better now. I'm definitely going to go back and try that. Okay, so that's all the Archon stuff. Overall, whoa. Okay, overall, I don't know if they actually killed mod spam or not. But this was Archon's one job, and if it doesn't do enough mod generation, Archon might be a hard sell for me. I hope other mods got buffed or trinkets to compensate for the huge loss in mod power generation, because that's kind of crazy. I know Archon was super strong. It was obviously, if you were playing mods, you had to go Archon because of that prime perk. It was insane, but with no compensation, just losing that's a big piece of our power gone. Moving on to Invader. Not really any Invader changes, which is kind of sad. Wormhole now procs Perfect Dodge, which is cool. I mean, because that means you can easily sustain a Kara Warband and other trinkets now, but no other changes. Ritualist. Okay. I'm sure this one's going to get hit. Dots are kind of crazy. Wrath will now work with minions, which is nice. I guess it didn't before, but was anyone really using minions actively like that? I don't know. Maybe. Crit chance is reduced from 10 to 5. Again, not fucking surprised. Eruption is a bit stronger now that it works with slows, but the cooldown was increased. Yeah. I mean, slows aren't really that common, but okay, so that's a little bit nerfed, but that's fine. Miasma got hit pretty hard, taking a 33% damage nerf from 500 down to 300. That's a shame. It was a large part of dot build's damage, and yeah, I mean, it was really good before, but a 33% damage nerf is kind of a lot. Obviously, you're still going to want to use it just to apply the dots and keep the duration up. That's fine too. But the damage is going to take hits. Deathwish got buffed. 50% damage. Okay, so they took the damage from Chaos Gate and put it on Deathwish. That's going to be insane. Yeah, Deathwish is still really good. Overall, looks like Ritualist is just a little bit weaker because of Miasma, but it's probably still going to be okay in the long run. We're going to have to see what else changes with that. All right, that was all the archetype stuff. Wait. No, I missed Explorer. Okay. Explorer gets a shovel. New OP melee weapon. Okay, I mean, I want a shovel, but that's the only change to Explorer. Okay, so they get a shovel. Cool. Moving on to weapons, though, and we're going to start with melee weapons. Assassin Dagger, now always weak spots on the back hits. That's cool and well-themed, actually. It lost bonus damage on bleed, though, and the base damage got hit pretty hard. I don't know how much bonus damage, weak spots are 150%, I think. I don't know about melee. Melee has different weak spot modifiers. This is actually going to be hard to tell if this is the buff or not. It may deal slightly more damage to the backs, but then deal a lot less damage from the front. So I don't know if this is a good change or not. It's cool thematically. I just don't know if it's going to be enough to make us want to use it. Stonebreaker got hit. We all knew that was coming one day. It no longer does full damage on swings and projectiles. It was the only weapon that did. That's fine. But this weapon's pretty much just going to be dead at this point, so we're going to stick to World's Edge for clear, and I can't remember what the One True King Mace's name is called, but that one is going to be for bossing. Feral Judgment's probably going to be your next best bet too, but alright, Stonebreaker's done. Atom Splitter got a few buffs, not significant, but the projectile coming out on neutral dodge is just kind of what's ruining it for me. Not a huge fan of that, but I'm sure someone's going to like the change. Hero Sword got reduced stamina cost. Don't know how much, but to use the projectile, which is great. If the cost is low enough, it could be really good for proccing things cheaply. It's just kind of outshined by some of the ranged weapons that we have right now. Hunter Spear also is going to have a better charge and release window for the throw, so maybe it's going to be faster and more responsive to compete with Krell That's cool. I like the Hunter Spear. It's got poison dots, so now we have a poison weapon that we can use, hopefully better than Krell Smolder burn damage changed from 150 over 5 seconds to 200 over 5 seconds. It's not going to change anything for Smolder. Moving on. Okay, so that's all the melee weapon changes. Not too much there. Going to keep my World's Edge equipped, to be honest. I'm going to swap over on my melee build to use the... I cannot think of that mace. Whatever the One Tree King mace is, that's going to be the new go-to. Obviously, we don't know what's going to be in the DLC, though, but... Alright, moving on. Standard guns and handguns. Repeater pistol, my baby. Clip size is increased from 15 to 20. That's pretty huge. That's a big clip size increase. Fire rate increased from 7.5 to 8.1. Pretty good, too. That's it. Okay. I love the repeater Remnant 1. Maybe I'll start using it again. I think the repeater is actually pretty underrated. The clip size change is pretty massive here. All right, good changes. The SMG got another mag of reserves. Fuck yeah, it was already my favorite sidearm, and now it's got more ammo, which means it's going to generate more on provisioner setups, like skill loot builds that I use it. It's going to be better. Great. Magnum clip went from 5 to 6. Okay, big win. It's still a nice change for Magnum, though now it's actually going to take longer to reload it, so that may not actually be all that helpful. But for Shotgun Swapper, it's going to be a nice change just because it's closer in clip size to the shotgun, which means it's going to be more evenly distributed with the provisioner reloading. And now it's got a little bit more in the reserve, so it should reload just a little bit quicker with provisioners. So that's good for Magnum. I like that. Sure Shot, which hasn't really seen much use, got 5 more base damage and a faster reload. Undocumented how much, but that could be very nice. Definitely deserved, because I don't think anyone's really using Sure Shot, but okay, faster reload's always good. Tech 22, 2 more mags in the reserves and faster reload? That's pretty crazy. I actually might have to use this over SMG because they're already pretty close, and now it's going to have even faster reloading and way more reserves. Yeah, Tech 22 is going to go burr. All right. Service pistol, fan favorite for sure. More reload speed. Looks like all the handguns are getting reload speed increases. And clip from 9 to 10. Can't complain. Good changes there. Western Classic. Another favorite of mine for body shots at least. 6 more reserve rounds. Great. Damage bump from 32 to 36. Not too shabby actually. That's 12% more damage. Increased fire rate and reload speed. Okay, that one's actually surprising me because the fire rate was already pretty good and the reload speed was already really fast because it just did the whole 6 shell dump and then put them all back in at once, unlike Magnum has to do them one at a time. So if it's faster, that's gonna be kind of crazy. Western Classic might be like the new go-to. Double barrel. Okay. Nerfs, not surprised. It was actually stronger than some of the long guns. But actually only slightly nerfs, it seems. So damage got reduced from 110 to 105. Whatever. And minus 5% reload speed. Whatever. And plus 1 minimum range. Actually, that's pretty nice. Not complaining here. That's fine. I don't think double barrel changed all that much. It's still be really, really good. So, yay. Rupture Cannon. I actually felt this gun was actually weird to shoot, and I've never really liked it. But they've got a lot of changes to it. It shoots faster, but now it has reduced spread while not moving and worse spread while moving. They say significantly increase the reload speed, so I'm curious about that. It's going to be hard to judge that. We may need to try it just to see how it feels. My issue is that it just does significantly less damage than like on the Magnum for similar fire rate, similar range and stuff, and because it's like a shotgun and the pellets spread, it just kind of distributes the damage a little bit more unevenly. That might be even worse now because if you shoot it while moving, it's going to have much more recoil, but well, we'll see. I hope it's good. Bolt Driver, slight buffs, projectile velocity increased, which is desperately needed. Just a little bit, it looks like, and it shoots a little bit faster. I'm actually surprised this one didn't get a reload speed increase because this thing reloads really slow. That's the one thing that's preventing me from wanting to use it. So shame for that, but okay. That was all the handguns. So some decent changes there. Tech 22 Western Classic definitely came out on top here and definitely going to see a lot more use. I'm curious about Rupture Cannon. We'll have to test that one. But anyway, let's get into the long guns. Huntsmaster, more reserves, and okay, big changes for Huntsmaster. So you're not animation locked anymore when you're using the bolt action part. So you should be able to now shoot, let go of ADS, melee, roll, or even shoot faster and more responsive than before because you don't have to get locked into the the bolt action animation. So that's actually pretty nice. I think it's gonna be a good change for Huntsmaster, and people are actually gonna use that more. Wrangler, more reserves, better accuracy. Okay, great, no complaints there. Should feel nicer across the board. Pulse rifle, reduce horizontal recoil, but slightly increase vertical recoil. Okay, should be about the same. I still like the gun, so okay. Sniper, increase reload speed. Depending on how much that actually is, it's going to depend on how much of a damage buff this is, because reload speed is effectively your fire rate for your single shot weapons. So that can be pretty big. Sniper, along with sure shot, definitely need help. So I think the reload speed is going to be pretty nice for them. Hopefully they see more use. So cool, cool. Crossbow. Okay, look, before I read crossbow, I don't think you can save the crossbow. I really don't. It looks like he got buffed across the board though. More damage, more weak spot damage, faster firing, faster reloading. Okay, maybe you can save the crossbow. I don't think I'm gonna be using it. I'll find out. I'll play around with it a little bit, but looks like pretty good changes. Looks like pretty good changes. Royal bow. Okay, touch on bows. Is now the speed shooter bow. So fire rate got a good bump. Charge time was reduced and reload speed increased. That's a lot of DPS increase for the Royal Bow. It's definitely gonna be really comfy now, especially with the Crescent Moon nerfs in the previous patch. The DPS on the Royal Bow is actually probably gonna be the best out of all the bows now, assuming the ammo mods work properly. Because I mean, obviously we don't know the exact numbers of the changes, but a change in reload speed, fire rate, and reduced charge time. That's all more arrows per minute essentially. So that's all DPS increasing stats right there. So that's cool. Sparkfire got nerfs. Well, not really. Slightly reduced the fire rate and reload speed by like a point, whatever. It's not too impactful. I actually don't think anyone actually uses this gun to deal damage, but the reload speed on it might hurt a little bit. They nerfed that slightly, but whatever. Sparkfire is still good. Okay, that's all the normal long guns. Honestly, nothing too significant on these. Royal Bow is a clear outlier there, and that's going to be hot going forward, so we're definitely going to be using that. All the other guns just look like basic quality of life increases, reduced recoil, some more ammo or whatever, reload speeds. Fine. Fine. All right, special handguns. Hellfire. Only the mod got touched, it seems. Base damage increased from the mod from 155 to 175, and the dot changed from 100 fire damage over 5 seconds to 250 over 10 seconds. Okay. Both of these are kind of relatively minor increases for the mod as a whole, but this is actually what I wanted to see. So, the fact that we have less mod generation, maybe we'll have more just damage on our mods, so that balances out. So that's cool. Because this also got changed in the prior patch from explosive to pure fire, so I'm wondering if full fire scaling is going to be decent to go with Hellfire now. But I think the primary fire on Hellfire is pretty awful, and I was hoping that would have gotten a buff too. But this isn't a bad change either, so I've always wanted to use Hellfire, so maybe now's the time. All right, Room Pistol. Sorry about my allergies are killing me. I'm probably have to make like a bunch of quick cuts. Anyway, Room Pistol. Slight buffs across the board. Base damage increased by 1 from 15 to 16. Reload speed got slightly bumped up, and now it reloads on mod activation. That's pretty cool. Not sure if it's going to justify using it over the corrupted version, but it's a better Room Pistol. Hey, look, corrupted Room Pistol. Okay, so same changes it seems. Base damage increased by 1 from 16 to 17. Mod also reloads, so corrupted Room Pistol still better in my opinion. Side note, the sound effect on the corrupted Room Pistol sounds insane, and I love it. I've always wanted this gun to be stronger. I was hoping it would go to like 19 or 20 base damage, but this is fine. Meridian, no Meridian buffs, just a bug fix that nobody ever ran into apparently. Okay. Which is a shame. Meridian projectiles and mod are entirely outclassed by corrupted Meridian, so I was hoping that would get buffs. No corrupted Meridian. Okay. Sorrow, projectile velocity increased a bit. That's about it. Some recoil reduction. Probably gonna keep Sorrow shelved for now. I like Sorrow, but also with the mod generation nerfs, sustaining the loop with this is gonna be really hard. So I don't really like that. Corrupted Sorrow. Okay, this might be dead since apparently now the mod doesn't scale with range damage, which obviously, just like Corrupted Meridian, the primary scaling with mod damage, it's unintended. But that mod's probably not going to be hitting too hard anymore, so sorry about that, buds. We can't have nice things. We can't have mods that scale with range damage, and we can't have range damage that scale with mod damage. Not allowed. Corrupted Nebula got double movement speed on the Wisps. That's pretty insane. That gun is already really good, so now it's going to be a bit more consistent. So that's a pretty big win there. I like that. I gotta make Corrupted Nebula builds. Starshot, reload speed increased, which is great because it's got the slowest fucking reload in the game. And wow, okay, so the mod cost got reduced from 630 to 420. Good changes so far on the mod stuff, just gotta say. Because with the lack of the Archon Prime, I'm unsure of what's going on with that stuff. But okay, so the total base cost for a level 5 Starshot is gonna go from like 3150, I think is what it is, to 2100 mod power required. That's pretty huge. Starshot spam build may be viable. I don't know, again, what else is going to change with this mod power stuff, but if we lost 100% mod generation, but, mod costs got hit by like 50%, that's pretty good. Alright, Cube Gun. Projectile speed increased by like 50%. That's pretty huge. And it looks like minor tweaks to make the missing cubes not as detrimental, so like they reload automatically, they like automatically recall, looks like. I wish it generated a little less heat, but Cube Gun is still great because it's got infinite ammo. And this should actually help it feel a lot more consistent. So that's cool. That's a good change for Cube Gun. Corrupted Cube Gun. Slight buffs all around. The mod looks like it's a pretty nice buff to the heat generated weapons. I'm not sure if these buffs are okay, I'm not sure if these buffs are going to make me want to use the gun for damage since the damage didn't change. So each cube is still only going to hit for like 300 damage. I'm going to test and see though. I personally do not like Corrupted Cube Gun at all. Maybe if we have more heat generated weapons or something, this could be useful. But like I think the only ones we really use are like Bone Saw and Laser or Plasma Cutter. So that's like the only use it has. But all right, I mean, it is what it is. Anguish. All right, here we go. Base damage got nerfed. Understandable. That thing hits like a truck. Charge time is also reduced, so that's a damage buff there. So maybe charging is going to be more worthwhile. The mod also got nerfed with mod cost increase from 500 to 915. There's no way you're going to be able to sustain that now, especially with the Archon nerf. You got rid of more than 100% of our mod generation and then doubled the cost of that thing. That's going to be rough. It now scales properly with explosives, so that's actually going to be less damage because it was double dipping on that, whereas multiplicative, I forget which one. But that's going to take a huge hit, which is fine because we all knew that was going to be changed. Overall, it might be pretty good still, like doing like the charge shot from it, but it was straight broken before. I'm not sure if the mod's going to be good anymore since I downed it sustainable, but we'll have to see. Okay, so for the special handguns, that's all of those. I think Starshot and Hellfire are looking pretty nice. I don't know about Anguish, but that's dependent on how much mod spam we can still do. But that's about it. Nothing really huge there. All right, let's move on to the long guns. So Sagittarius, the mod is refractored to allow refactored or refractored to allow the stars to pulse damage in the entire AoE. I don't know what that means. Does it mean that each like little starfault will hit everything in the radius? Because that would be broken as fuck if it did. Maybe it's only gonna nearby like the impact spot. Okay, I'm gonna need to do a lot of testing on that because that could be the new best mod in the game. Especially because it doesn't look like the mod cost got increased and it cost basically nothing before. Sagittarius is already an amazing bow. The mod was the actual only thing holding it back, so that's pretty big. Merciless. Understandable changes here. The nails are faster, it applies bleed sooner, and the reload is faster, but the mod is nerfed a little bit. So it's understandable because the mod costs damn near nothing and you could easily sustain the mod indefinitely. But the mod cost was increased from 315 to 500. But again, we lost 100% mod power generation, so that you're going to feel that a lot more now. Corrupted Merciless. Interesting changes here. You don't need 3 shots in a row to reload while the mod is active. It's just 3 weak spot hits. It's got to clip at 3. So it's got to be just for like Bandit and Extender and stuff to play with that better. So if you had like clip 5, let's say, you could do 2, wait, and then shoot 1 more and get a reload. It's going to be interesting to see how that's going to work on bosses with good weak spots. Could be a really good gun. I mean, it already is not bad, but it's probably better now. Nightfall took a 10% damage nerf for a 20% fire rate increase. It's an easy trade because, yeah, I mean, that's an easy win there. More clip size too. So, I mean, yeah, Nightfall's looking pretty nice. It wasn't bad before, but things like Corrupted Savior and Monarch were just overshadowing it. So cool, we got Nightfall buffs. Not hating about that. That's nice. Arbalists. Reload speed. Okay. That's it. And Corrupted Arbalists got reduced reserves. Okay. I mean, I tried to make these work before, but their bossing damage is just awful. So that's going to remain the same. And if I wanted to clear ads, I think our World's Edge has got me covered. I don't know. I really want to like Arbalists. I do. I don't. So they're not changing. So bad Arbalists. Deceit. All right. Let's see if Bolt's going to cry. Okay. No actual changes on how Deceit, the gun part, functions. The mod damage is increased, and the mod now has the melee tag, so it scales at melee damage. That's interesting. So nothing changes with the gun, so Deceit's still gonna live, though it's gonna be still hurting from the last round of indirect nerfs. But the mod is different. It's more damage and scales with melee. I wonder if you could do like a melee Deceit build now. That's gonna be fun. And it looks like Corrupted Deceit, same thing. It's melee scaling. Huh. Okay. Interesting. Monarch did not get nerfed. That's surprising. The King was definitely winning that, that's for sure. Monarch is pretty much our go-to automatic weapon right now since the Corrupted Savior nerfs. At least I think. I can't really remember if it was that bad enough to warrant swapping back, but Monarch is really good now. Plasma Cutter lost a whole magazine of reserves. That's gonna hurt. 5% weak spot damage and a slight reduction to heat generation, so you actually get through a whole clip size without overheating. Good. For bossing, I think it should still be fine, but for general trash clear, the loss of a whole magazine is going to be really noticeable. So, yeah. Overall, it's probably a good change. I don't see why you needed to reduce the clip. I don't see why you needed to reduce the reserve size, but all right. Savior! Alright, my baby. The bow gun. Hold on. What? A lot of stuff got... Okay, so the damage got gutted from 72 base damage to 50. But the perfect shot damage got buffed with these numbers. So the tap fire is going to be a lot weaker, but perfect shots are going to be a little bit stronger than before. I mean, that's a net loss, right? Fire rate and reload speed was increased. Actually, that's good because the reload speed was my biggest complaint about that gun. And now the mod will shatter on any hit. So it's going to do the shatter AoE thing and apply ignite on any hit, not just weak spot or kills. That's pretty cool, actually. Okay. I don't mind that. I kind of like that. So basically, now it's going to be more based upon precision shots. But now also the AoE is going to be a lot more reliable, and that does reload it. Okay. It's essentially now just a bow with hot shot AoE, so I kind of like that. Hopefully that damage loss is pretty big from 72 to 50. That's a big hit. Hopefully it's still good. Hopefully it feels fine, but I'm worried. But I like it. Corrupted Savior though. Overall base fire rate seems to be nerfed. Hold on. It lost reserve ammo from 300 to 200. That kind of sucks. Magazine size went down from 50 to 40 and lost fire rate at max mod charges. So it's not going to be shooting as fast. So honestly, if that's any significant amount of fire rate, the Monarch's probably going to be our go-to. The mod, though, went through a lot of changes. So the mod cost is reduced per charge from 400 to 330. That's good. But again, our mod power builds, we lost so much mod generation, it's gonna be harder to keep that up. It says added activate animation. I don't know what that means. I hope it means that when you press the mod button, it just fires rather than swapping to an alt fire mode. Oh my god, allergies. Sorry. That would be cool because then you don't have to, require you to press it back. If that's true, then the mod was basically saved at that point. That's gonna save you a lot of like finger presses. It also fires 300% faster. Is that like the wind up animation? So that's gonna be nice. It's gonna be a lot more responsive. And now it reloads 20% of the magazine per charge spent. Great. So you don't have to do like the whole fire mod, swap back out of mod fire mode, reload, and then reactivate the mod. So this whole gun should actually play a lot smoother. This is actually gonna be really interesting to try out because maybe like a hybrid build to scale both ranged and mod damage. Now that we don't have as much mod generation, will actually work out. I like the change overall here. It could actually be really good if it works as I think it does now. So that's awesome. Moving on, Aphelian's turn. Okay, a lot of Aphelian changes. Primary fire is now fully automatic. It's wider and taller. That's very nice. It does travel 50% faster now and says it has almost no recoil. That's going to be pretty nice for the gun part, actually. It really did need to be buffed. It might actually be pretty decent for AoE trash clear now. I don't know. I can't remember if the actual beam shoots through walls like World's Edge does, though. Because if the beam is wider and it still catches on walls or objects, it could actually, despawn the wave earlier and it actually could kill the gun. We'll have to see how that actually works out. But the mod changes are huge too. Okay. Let me read this real quick. Okay, so it's actually faster to swap the fire modes with the mod, which is excellent. The black hole is going to travel more than twice as fast. That's crazy. And now the firing of the mod generates 1 ammo, so you can actually always detonate it. That's actually all great news. I really like the Aphelian changes a lot. I really hope I can sustain it, but this thing kind of like over-generated mod power, so it might be okay. Yeah, that could actually be a really fun weapon to use now. That's good. All right. Oh, corrupted Aphelian time. Okay. So similar changes to Aphelian. The blades are stronger. They go from 66 damage to 99, so that got a huge damage buff. It's like 50%. But the fire rate took a hit from 2.2 to 1.45 rounds per second. Whatever. I mean, that's slower, but I'd rather the blades do a lot more damage. The blades travel faster, they're wider, and the reload speeds increase. So that's cool. The mod switches faster like before and also generates 1 more ammo to use to detonate it, just like the original one. And now the orbs have a larger blast radius and deal more explosion damage at the cost of fire damage. Okay. That should be pretty fun to try out. I do like the shotgun part of it, but I'm worried about how that's going to perform. If it shoots faster, that means those like the 5 micronovas are going to spread out faster. And you're going to want to be that really narrow to shotgun an enemy better. But if you get closer to it, you're going to hit yourself more because the blast radius is bigger. And those hitting yourself with it throws you damn near across the map. So I don't know. It's going to be hard to see how that one's going to play out. It's good changes on paper, but I don't know about practice. Alpha Omega, 1 less base damage and a slightly slower fire rate, but half the charge rate. So it should feel more, ramp uppy. Like it should machine gun a lot faster. The mod didn't get changed much. It travels faster, which is good quality of life, but I always activated on a mod swap, not reload, because that was faster anyway. Maybe we'll have to change back. But okay, not a whole lot of changes there. Sad. Star Killer. All right, let's see what we got here. Base gun firing got reduced recoil while stationary, but not much else. No damage increases or anything there, so that sucks. The mod got a huge damage increase, though, almost by 50% more damage. It says it should work on all non-bosses now. I wonder if that's going to count aberrations. And now it auto-reloads on shot as well, so that's cool, I guess. I don't think this is going to be good for boss killing, obviously, but maybe it'll still feel good enough to use regardless. It's always a fun gun, but we'll have to keep our eyes out on that one. Repulsor. Okay, this is great. Significant reload speed increase. That's awesome. I really hated this weapon because the reload speeds are so slow and so often. The mod now only has 1 charge instead of 3, but the mod power was cut in half down to 250 mod power, which is basically nothing. But now you don't have to do the ammo swap animation after shooting bandage. You can go right into shooting. so you don't swap back fire modes. Okay, so this should make Repulsor actually feel really good to use. I actually can't wait to get my hands on that one. Because so before, you'd have to, press the mod button, and it would open up and get ready to use Banish. Then you have to shoot Banish, and then you have to press mod again to close it, and then you can shoot. But now it seems like because it's only got one charge, you should just go up, shoot Banish, and then go right into shooting the gun. So it should feel a bit better. So that's cool. Spore Bloom got changes. Okay. Fire rate got increased by a good amount, 1.55 to 1.95. This only applies to Bandit, essentially, but it's a welcome change. Mod got reworked a bit and no longer does friendly fire damage. Thank you. I've been actually asking for that since Remnant 1. But now it only has one charge. Okay, whatever. It no longer has the explosive tag. Whatever. As a consolation prize, it also has haste to those in the cloud. Okay. It kind of reminds me of like Hive Cannon's mod shot from Remnant 1. You can just sit in it and use it as a defensive barrier now because it'll slow people that touch it. Maybe not the most effective thing for bossing, but it should feel nice for zone clearing. I don't know if haste makes sense. Slow enemies in the cloud, but speed you up. All right. But, I mean, I'll take it. Okay, so that's all the gun changes. Okay. So, Sagittarius might be my new favorite weapon, depending on how that mod goes. So I'm pretty excited about that. That's a big change for that, assuming I read it right. Savior could be good as well. I'm gonna have to see how that feels. But the damage when you miss a perfect shot could be absolute ass. I'm not sure how this is gonna compare to the bows, who still have high damage regardless, perfect shot or not. Athelion, probably gonna be really good. I want to try out both that and the corrupted version. There's still mod focused weapons, and the mod costs are really high. And I'm worried about the mod generation for lack of Archon Prime now, but we're gonna have to see how that works out. I like the changes on paper though. All right, let's continue on. And speaking of mods, though, we have mod changes, and I'm actually surprised we're getting mod changes. Okay, hang on. Blood Draw. It looks like it's actually gonna just work now. I'm not sure if it applies to bosses because it just I don't know. I'm gonna assume it works. Let's just say Blood Draw works on everything now, so maybe we can use it. Okay, Blood Draw usable. Bore, 10-second duration instead of 6, and 15% more weak spot damage from 165. It used to be 150. Assuming the exploits with Bore also got fixed, it's probably still going to be really solid to use. It's only one charge, but I think that's fine given that we don't have as much mod generation now. A 10-second Bore might be pretty usable though. Energy wall size got increased. Tall or wide, because a lot of things go right over it before. But okay, bigger energy wall. Fargazer looks like it finally got killed. No damage increases to compensate it, but it's actually going to be kind of useless because it doesn't scale with mod duration now, or not mod duration, status duration, and you can't have multiple of them out. So Fargazer is dead. Firestorm properly scales with mod duration now, which is odd because I also thought it always did that, but all right. Night Guard also got hit. No longer curses, which is fine. That was like a weird thing that they changed mid-patch. No longer triggers melee mutators. I thought that was a really cool interaction with it, to be honest. That sucks. Damage type is now physical in mod. Not sure if that's actually going to change anything, but the damage was so pitiful before that the extra scaling probably isn't going to be doing it any favors. I don't like that. I really like that Night Guards are cool because you can actually trigger melee stuff with them because they counted as melee. God, I hope the damage changes enough to make them worthwhile because I think they only hit like 33 damage before or something. Alright, so Night Guards might be dead. Ring of Spears. Lots of buffs. Nothing animation related, it looks like, so that's kind of weak. Reduce the mod cost from 1800 to 1250. Very nice. Adding melee damage scaling to them. Also very nice, since they're already pretty strong, and now they actually get just another modifier to scale off of. That's cool. Recalled Spears count as explosives now. Oh my god. Ring of Spears is actually going to be really good. That build was already one of the better mod builds. Wow. Okay. I'm going to build around Ring of Spears again. That's going to be cool. All right. Rod Arrows. Base damage got a big boost from 20 to 75. That's huge. Weak spot hit went from 50% to 125%. also huge. Explosive damage went from 60 to 100. Projectile is also twice as fast now. The only downside is that it no longer applied to Cloud Dot, which is fine because the Cloud didn't tick for like anything. And it's only 2 charges instead of 3. Whatever. On a level 20 weapon, this is actually going to be a huge damage buff because you got to consider that everything's triple value. So it should do 525 base damage now between the explosion and the raw. And it's a really cheap mod. They didn't change the mod cost of it or anything. And it's actually going to be really good on weak spots. So this actually might be really solid. Weak spot mod build could be a thing with this. I like this change for Rod Arrow. It's actually going to be like an arrow, not like a cloud. All right. Scrap shot, slow duration is reduced. But now the bleed is almost twice as strong, going from 220 damage to 400 damage over 10 seconds. All right. I mean, there's still a ton of airborne enemies that make this not desirable at times, but maybe we'll see more ground enemies. That's fine. I don't know how many people actually use scrap shot. It's cool. I just always thought that it got like outclassed by other mods, especially because the damage isn't good. I don't know, because it didn't apply a bleed before. It just said like a damage over time like a bleed. So I don't know if this is saying that we're actually going to get a bleed with it. So it's actually a bleed applying mod, which would be cool for dot builds. Because that means you could scale it a lot more. But we'll have to see about that. Could be a good change. Voltaic Rondor now actually scales. So maybe it's actually going to deal some damage. I was actually hoping we'd see some sort of like tracking increase or something better for that, because this thing just goes everywhere and doesn't even hit enemies sometimes. But all right, so better Voltaic Rondor. We'll see how that goes. And that's all the mod changes. Okay, I was actually expecting a lot of buffs of mods to compensate for the lack of mod power generation we got. Like a whole like use them less, but now they're a lot stronger when you do. I mean, obviously the Ring of Spears and Rot Arrow are going to be really good now, and I kind of want to build around those, but I don't see how most mod builds are going to survive at this rate. Again, we're going to have to test in game, but from what I can see, the only significant changes to mod builds has been the reduced mod generation. All right, moving on to Mutators. Extender went to 45% increased ML instead of 40, and 5% more reload speed. I actually don't know if this does much for anything, because it's not enough to get a clip 1 weapon to clip 2, and clip 2s are still going to be clip 3. So it's 5% more reload effectively. I guess that's fine. Bullet Weaver is fixed, so it only applies to the weapon it's on. Momentum got hit. We all knew this was coming. It's now 20% crit and crit damage instead of 30%. That's understandable. It was hands down the best mutator in the game and carried all automatic weapons. So whatever. Lively now gain reload speed based upon amount of damage done instead of kills, but we're unsure of how much. So before it was 5 kills and it would get you the 35% reload speed. It was 5% every time you got a kill. So is this going to be like 100% of base damage gets you to 5 stacks? So if you miss a shot, you don't get it or something. For sniper rifles, will that be 1 shot? If you hit, you get 35% reload speed. I don't know, and we're gonna have to see the numbers before we can determine if that's good or not, because it could be really insane for sniper rifle, because reload speed is basically fire rate for that thing, and that's multiplicative damage. So that could be a really good change. Lively might be like the new go-to. That's really good. Twisting Wounds got a slight nerf, it looks like. So it was 200 damage over 10 seconds, but now it's 200 damage over 20 seconds. So the DPS was cut in half, but it lasts longer. I mean, I only used it to apply bleeds anyways, so that's fine. But if you're using it in a dot build, you lost half your DPS off that one, so that sucks. Transpose didn't get a bug fixed, but it was nerfed to compensate it, adding ammo directly to your mag. So before, it was like whenever time you would generate ammo through like a relic or something else that wasn't picking it up, it would automatically apply to your magazine instead. And that was a bug. So now it's less effective, but it does that. So, I mean, okay, whatever. Tactically, from before this patch and now, it's a nerf, but whatever. Time Wave got shuffled around. Now the primary levels, like 1 through 9, add range damage to slowed enemies. I hope it's not just the 15%, because no one's going to use that if it's just 15% damage. The level 10 now has mod activation, slows enemies in a 10-meter radius for 5 seconds on a 10-second cooldown. So it's not spammable slows anymore. That's also a nerf. It's fine. I just hope that the damage is better than 15% additive, because otherwise it's just going to be a big nerf for this thing across the board, and I don't even think it got that much of a use otherwise. All right, whatever. Refunder, refunds more or less. Fail safe, 5% more mod damage. Was hoping for 5% more chance of refunding mods given the state of things, but okay, so that's whatever. Ghost Shell. Reduce number of hits to activate from 3 to 2. So 2 weak spots is going to make the next weak spot deal 40% more damage. That's not terrible considering the level 10 also gives you 15% weak spot crit chance. So overall, this is almost going to be an equal damage buff to momentum, but basically for non-automatic weapons. So that's cool. Yeah, I mean, that's good. That's good. Moving on, feedback. Getting a bump from 10% mod damage generated as mod power to 15%. That's nice considering we lost 100% mod generation. But overall, we still have less mod generation because, you know, if we had 100% before and that gave us 10, we're actually getting 20. But now we have 15. So it's a buff, but it's still a nerf. Okay. I'll take it where I can get them, though. Battery actually didn't get nerfed. So battery, you can still get 3 charges for a mod that costs 1200 mod power, but there was a bug that basically granted all 3 stacks instantly, so that got fixed. Cool. So battery got fixed. Still a good mod. Spirit healer, I'm actually not too interested in healing, but you can read that. Ingenuity got nerfed. Less heat reduction, so from 50% down to 30%, and a slight buff to the reload speed. So it seems like a nerf to heat weapons, which I don't think any of them are really going crazy. I mean, Plasma Cutter was good in certain situations, but okay. Sequence Shot lasts a bit longer now, so we actually might be able to use it more reliably with Anguish and Bolt Driver, but now it has 5% less crit chance too. Literally everything that does crit is going to get hit a little bit, it seems like. Bottom Heavy got nerfed, and I don't know why or how. So fire rate was reduced to cap out at 25% fire rate. And the level 10 says it's 1.5 reload speed per 10% missing ammo, max of 30%. But if you're missing all of your ammo, you're capped at 15%. Because it's 100%. 10%, 100%. It's 10 times. So it's 15%, which is less than the 20 it had before, unless the max is 30% across both of its properties, in which case it got hit really hard. Okay. I think this is a big nerf to bottom heavy. The wording's a little weird on it, but maybe in game it'll make more sense. But that sucks. Okay. Bottom feeder got reworked entirely to spirit feeder. So now it grants 25% mod damage for 5 seconds when you reload and 25% reload speed for 5 seconds on mod usage. Okay, so things like Corrupted Sorrow or Corrupted Savior would really like that. That's actually cool. I like that. We may have to play more ranged mod hybrids now if we can't spam mods, so this actually could be seeing some use. Fetid Wounds got nerfed. Holy crap. A lot of dots are getting hit. So instead of 200 damage over 10 seconds, it's 75 damage over 10 seconds. Dude, it's absolutely gutted. Wow. That sucks. All right. Whatever. So I guess slows count for its crit bonus, but the dot's dead. Sleeper now lasts a little bit longer, which is cool. I like Sleeper. It's not too exciting, but since the crit didn't actually get nerfed at all, it might be more appealing because it's still really a high crit damage mutator. Dreadful mutator is dreadful. I just don't like great health stacking stuff. The stats on it are fine. I'm sure someone's gonna make use for it, but I don't really care. Prophecy now grants 10% movement speed instead of 10% reduced mod cost. So another big blow to mod power builds. The 10% mod cost is actually pretty big, so that applies to both your weapons. Okay, so yeah, that sucks. Okay, that was the ranged mutators. Let's move on to melee mutators. Vampire Blade, 5% melee damage. It's not going to help it all that much. Overdrive. We all saw this one coming. All right, so no crit on the levels 1 through 10. So it lost 25% crit damage. I can't be mad about it because it basically had 2 crit damage stats on it, but losing 25% crit damage on a melee build kind of sucks. Misfortune went 2% more and applies slow for 3 seconds, not 2. That's fine. That's cool. I don't hate that. You can still get 50% damage on it, which is pretty nice. And 3-second slows are a lot better than 2-second slows. Steadfast lost 10% of its damage reduction. So you only get 10% DR while you're charging melee attacks instead of 20. Okay. Disengage. I don't know. I don't like disengage. Transference lost the level 10 bonus of gaining additional mod power. So no mod power is allowed, apparently. No mod power. It grants 50% reload speed after hitting with it, though. That's pretty good. It actually plays more into what it was supposed to do, but no mod power. Moving on, we got 5% damage bumps here and there. Shielded strikes got slightly more max shield, but now it's half the duration. I mean, so basically you can only really use this with like melee spam builds. I used to use this with night guards because it would just generate you free shield, but you can't do that anymore either. So it's gonna hurt shielded strikes a lot. Weapon Lord reduced stat count from 5 to 3. That's really good. So basically you have to hit 3 times, and then on a neutral charge, it's gonna guarantee crit. Yeah, I mean that's gonna be really good. 100% crit after like 3 hits. That's gonna be nice. Shocker now triggers on 3 hits instead of 5. Whoa. Okay, I didn't sound super excited, but actually I really am. That's insane. So weapons like World's Edge, if you hit 3 enemies, it's gonna blow everything up. And then Spectral Blade as well. You can hit 3 enemies that easy. So like every hit should damn near trigger it. Also scythes. The scythes do 3 hits on their charge swing, so this is gonna proc off every charge swing for a scythe. That's pretty good, dude. Shocker builds might be back on the menu for melee. That thing's gonna do a lot of damage. Opportunist. Now it says lasts full 2 seconds rather than the next melee swing in 3 seconds. What? Wait, what? Hold on. Okay. So basically, you have, when you perfect dodge, you have 2 seconds of all your melee swings being 100% crit. And then if you do any dodge during that window, you can refresh it. Okay, so maybe this is actually going to be the go-to melee mutator. Because you could probably sustain that 100% melee crit for a long time. So even in boss fights, just perfect dodge or something. Because you don't have to perfect dodge to refresh it. Any dodge or slide or whatever just refreshes it. You might, Atom Splitter actually might be good here because it applies on like neutral dodge, so you can dodge to refresh 100% crit, swing, dodge, swing. Oh, that's actually going to be really good. Okay. Yeah, maybe Opportunist is going to be the way to go for melee builds. That's really good. That's a crazy buff. Holy crap. Okay. Tainted Blade got hit hard. The damage was damn near cut in half. The DPS is going to be about the same, but the duration got hit. Now, the time it's going to... Because the time is lessened, you're going to have to actually do melees a lot more now. You can't just use a melee to apply it and then just walk away. And the total loss in damage is going to hit Energized Net Coil for it, which is going to be a shame. So the dot's going to be... I don't know. The dot's going to be weaker. The net coil explosions are going to be weaker. It's not going to be something that you can sustain as easily. So that's going to hurt Tainted Blade a lot in dot builds. Guts is fixed. So now it works. Still not a huge fan of Grey Life stuff, but that's really good. Guts is going to give you a lot of crit. Okay, that's all for the mutators. Okay, I think Opportunist here is clearly the winner. Shocker as well. That's going to be really interesting to play with. Ranged mutators, I don't think there's any actual winners there. Did I see any? Most of the good stuff just got kind of nerfed. Ghost Shell actually is going to see some more use. I'm wondering where I can put that into a build. But there's not a lot of good stuff going on there. So I guess Ghost Shell for ranged and Opportunist for melee. I'll put Opportunist and Shocker for melee. Those are good changes. All right, we're going to get into Amulets. Whetstone, first thing, of course. Actually, I thought I was going to get a bigger nerf. So the crit chance remains the same for 15%. Crit damage was reduced by from 13% to 15%. It's still good, but it's not probably going to be absolutely mandatory anymore because you're basically losing 15% multiplicative damage if you had a 100% crit build. So that's a pretty big power loss to the deck. It deserved it. It really did, but that's still going to hurt. Onk. Okay, Onk got nerfed down from 30% damage to 25 when you use a relic. That sucks. Birthright of the Lost. Okay, so this is the Expose Amulet. So the Expose is 15%, but the amulet itself is going to have a flat 10%. I don't know if anyone's going to use this still. So basically, you always have a 10% like all damage, and then if you perfect dodge something, they get exposed for flat 15. So this is like a very conditional 25% all damage neck. Like, why wouldn't you just use Ankh? I don't like the change. Okay. I mean, I didn't use it before, but it wasn't multiplicative damage. They're thinking about it, but it wasn't before. It was just 24% additive, which I know who used it. But okay, so I don't like the neck. Butcher's Fetish. Unchanged, but reduced duration from 15 seconds to 5 seconds, meaning this is strictly melee build amulet now. You can't just use this to apply and shoot for 15 seconds. It's unchanged crit stacking for melee, which is nice, but you are not using this on a range build now. Okay. Cost of Betrayal. Okay, so this is what I'm talking about when I refer to Birthright of the Lost. This here now is just 25% all damage with basically no strings attached. Yes, if you use the relic, you're going to get a more larger damage taken penalty, but otherwise, it's still 25% all damage all the time. Birthright is 10% plus 15 on one target when you perfect dodge. But dude, why wouldn't you just use Cost of Betrayal? Just use that. Daredevil no longer has damage penalty. Okay, it's 30% damage if you have no armor. You're getting one tap before, you're still going to get one tap, so that doesn't really change anything. 30% damage is probably fine with all the crit nerfs. It's probably going to be a bit more viable now. You know, you could just also use Cost of Betrayal for 25% with no strings attached. Decayed Margin got a nice melee damage buff from 25 to 35% and double life leech, which is pretty good. I mean, the life leech was pretty bad before, but basically now you have 3 and 6% depending on your life. That's pretty good. I'm not sure if this is going to edge out Butcher's Fetish still, but it's a really good improvement for sure. Maybe if you're running Opportunist already and you have full crit, maybe it could just be a bit better. Definitely a good change for this. Death's Embrace got changed a little bit. It's now 15% all damage when you don't have max health, and 25% all damage in haste when you have half or less. So Restriction Cord setup is looking a bit better there, but you know, not a whole lot of changes. Death Soaked Idol will now max out at 30% all damage when you have 5 statuses on the target. I don't see why you would take this over Sinister Totem still, because Sinister Totem is 50% damage, and 50 stacks is really easy to apply, and you could just use one status to do it, but okay. Couple other neck changes. Energized Neck Coil, here we go. 5% damage loss, not huge. Explosion damage is more accurate. I don't know if that's actually good or bad. Reduced base explosion range. It's already pretty small, wasn't it? So basically you're gonna have to use amplitude now. I don't know what reduction of that base explosion range is. Slight nerfs could have been worse, but dots are getting hit hard too, it seems. So it's only 20% all damage. So it's only 20% dot damage. Full Moon is 5% more range damage, 25%. Gift of Euphoria lasts 5 seconds now instead of 7, but takes less stamina to use. And now stacks swap 1 at a time, so that's pretty nice. Gift of the Unbound is a lot better. And no longer restricts HP based upon burdens, and in fact gives you movement speed with each burden equipped. That's pretty good. I can work with that. Mod and skill builds use a lot of burdens, so this could be a pretty good addition for them. We don't have very many good mod trinkets anyways. Gunfire Security Lanyard now grants more ammo, and that's awesome because I don't know how much it is. It just says more, so I'm going to have to test it. But it's a neck with no damage bonuses, and now that all the other crit necks kind of got nerfed, it should be pretty good now by comparison, especially if it gets pretty close to, you know, sustaining your ammo without needing to reload. That could be pretty good. Gunslinger Charm got 5% more of the reload speed. Nice. Hyperconductor is now only 25% skill cooldown penalty instead of 50%, and the mod generation penalty was removed. Oh, good. This is cool on paper. My biggest problem to adding skill charges, though, is that they still cool down 1 at a time. So after you use that initial extra 1 that you have, you're effectively without the amulet. And yeah, there's still going to be plenty of cases where you can get through a boss on those 2 charges, but I don't know, it's always kind of felt weird for me to use. Maybe paired with the new Sidewinder, you can have like permanent uptime and cycle 2 of those. That might be a thing. If one of them could be recharging while you're using another one, then that would be awesome. I think it's on. I talked to Tragic about it. I think he said like it's on a case-to-case basis on the skill whether or not they recharge while in use. So I'll have to go look at that. Indignant Fetish now triggers on any damage taken. So yeah, you just sustain that infinitely with Atonement Fold, but of course it got nerfed, so now it's only 20% all damage and 10% reduced damage taken. Not a terrible pick, to be honest. I'm sure some people will be using it. 10% damage reduction is actually pretty strong. Inert Overcharge got a slight buff to increase the duration by half a second. Dude, the Amulet's just not that good, though. That 0.5 seconds of standing still to activate it really kills its momentum. I see what they're trying to do with this, but I mean, it's just not good enough for me. It's only like a 20 or 25% fire rate increase, and I think Gunslinger Charm is almost that, but with no strings attached. Gesture Bell damage got nerfed by 5%. Why not? Mod things. Our Kinetic Shield Exchanger buff to grant 20% mod power instead of 15%. Well, it's not big. So far, the lack of mod generation items means this might be a bit more appealing. I don't know if we really have a way to sustain shields easily on a mod build, though, so that might be a problem. Other neck changes, nothing too exciting here. Supremacy is now 30% damage at full HP. The thing about this, though, is like if you're not going to be getting hit, why wouldn't you just run Daredevil? It's not like your armor's going to matter if you're not getting hit anyway. And I think it gives you movement speed, too. So, I mean, sure, Supremacy's still good, but Daredevil's better. Like, if you're playing on Apocalypse, you're going to get hit and you're going to die. Like, that's just how it is. With Daredevil, you're for sure going to die. But you're going to have a lot more movement speed. Now that they increase the movement speed cap, that's going to be pretty good. Supremacy, I mean, yeah, you just get the damage, and if you get hit, you're dead, right? Nightweaver's Grudge, lost 5% crit. What can I tell you? 15% now. Not surprised. Kind of sad. Onyx Pendulum. What? Why did they make this a multiplicative modifier? Okay, Shotgun Swapper is going to be my go-to build now, so buy mods. I mean, you're killed anyway. But really? So basically, we're going to have 20% multiplicative damage, which is really, really large. Especially since Gunfire has gone out of the way to remove all sources of like other multiplicative damage modifiers like Hunter Shot and Berserk. We get one added. Okay. Yeah, I mean, Shotgun Swapper just got a huge buff. It was already a pretty good build before, but now it's just way better. Granted, we did lose our crit. We're losing a lot of crit, so we might actually not have gained any damage. All right, so that's all the necks. Okay. Doesn't seem like there's anything really significant with everything else. Whispering Marble got hit, so Bulwark stacking Dad Bods kind of got a little bit of a hit there, so that's a shame. Nothing else so exciting. So, typical crit nerfs. I think Energized Neck Coil is still going to be really strong, but we don't know what exactly the fixed damage means on that, so that's going to be interesting. Onyx Pendulum, clear winner here for the neck. The swap builds are going to be insane. Whetstone is probably still better than most of these other options. We didn't really see much more than like a 5% additive buff here and there on other amulets, which doesn't really change much in the grand scheme of things. I think if you had like two items, like a ring and an amulet that had 5% increased damage, I think you're going to see maybe 5% more damage on your build. So it's really not a big deal. Okay, now the rings. The Ahane Crystal annihilated. We knew that was coming. But basically, so now it's, instead of being like 25% multiplicative damage, it's now 20% additive. I mean, don't get me wrong, 20% additive on a ring is still like the best thing around if you're playing dots, but dots needed that damage. But I mean, everyone is using it even without dot builds. So this killed a lot of power for a lot of builds. Especially compared with like the change to Miasma, I wouldn't be surprised if dot builds lost like 1,000 DPS. Like they got hit really hard. Akari Warband, yeah, nerf 10% crit damage and crit chance. It used to be 15%. We all knew that was going to happen. Not even surprised. It's still good. 10% crit, 10% crit damage, and it's not like perfect dodges are all that hard to sustain. A Terry booster now works in turret mode. Awesome. Good ring, good change. I like that. Engineer stonks on the rise. Atonement Fold got hit. We all knew it was coming. 5% crit now. That's fine. I mean, the self bleed is insane still. But yeah, lost crit. Okay. Blasting Cap ring got buffed from 10 to 15% explosive damage. Okay. Braided Thorns is it's just it doesn't have the trigger, so it's just flat 10% crit now. Okay. So no Atonement Fold, but Braided Thorns could just be 10% crit now. I guess 10% crit and the self bleed was too good. But okay, that's going on damn near every set. Okay. Burden rings. Oh, it looks like all the burden rings. Okay, so burden rings are all getting hit. Destroyer is now a 33% range penalty instead of 25%, which is kind of big. Burden of the Divine is now 15% damage penalty instead of 10%, and reduced shared healing from 50 to 30%. That's gonna be a hit. That's pretty good. Burden of the Follower lost a chunk. Oh my god. Burden of the Follower went from 50% mod generation down to 25. Dude, like, okay, mod builds are suffering. That's a, oh my god. We don't have like very many things to generate mod power. Gambler lost 5% of the crit damage, whatever. So basically all the ones that we got used got hit. I really wasn't expecting Burden of the Follower nerf. That thing already has like 25% reduced fire rate. See, I thought we were gonna have to do more like ranged mod swap builds, but like with Follower also nerfed, you're not gonna want to do ranged hybrid with 25% reduced fire rate. That's insane. That's crazy. All right, moving on. Cataloger's Jewel got buffed from 8 mod power per second to 10. Okay. Crimson Dreamstone is now a 20% skill damage boost ring with all the stacks falling off one at a time. That's good. That's going to be like for Vulcan and Havoc form. Yeah, you're running that for sure. Deep Pocket Ring got increased from 25 to 35% reserves. If you guys didn't know, your reserves determine how fast Provisioner Ring restocks your MO. So this is a good buff to Swapper builds. So, dude, Swapper stuff still looking good. Devoured Loop no longer fully refills at all. My Devoured Loop no longer refills all charges if you're using. Okay. So if you had like Hyperconductor on and your skills had 2 charges, I guess this would refill both of them. I didn't know it did that before. I actually didn't use it for that. But now it doesn't. It's just 1 charge on proc. Fine. It doesn't affect me at all. I'm sure someone's build got hit, but that's fine with me. Whatever. Devoured Loop, slight nerf, whatever. A lot of slight ring changes, like little damage buffs here for there. Again, added damage changes don't really interest me all that much. It doesn't really affect a lot of things. Probability core got hit. Yeah, damage reduced from 30% to 20%. Who could have seen that coming, huh? Provisioner's Ring restocks more ammo. Oh my god. Okay. I mean, I'm already loading my shotgun shells as we speak. The shotgun swapper is going to be amazing. That thing is just like everything that it used before is getting buffed. Actually, shotgun didn't get buffed, but everything else did. Ring of the Damned now grants 0.4% damage per 1% of health, gray health, and gets 5% crit when you're half gray health. So if you're like all gray health, that's huge. It's like 40% damage boost on a ring. That's really big for a ring, actually. Actually, if you scroll back up, the bitter memento ring that got changed that I glossed over, using skills cuts like your health down to like 33% gray health. Pairing these two, which would still be 20% damage average rings. If you use a couple skills, you can lock your health down to basically all gray as long as you don't have any regen. That could be really good. Sapphire Dreamstone is now 4% skill cooldown on crit. Decent bump there. Shiny Hog Lure got buffed to 25 to 50 mod power on reload. Still a net loss when you consider Archon Prime. Singed Ring also got hit the same as Ahane Crystal, so now it's just a 12% additive buff instead of a 10% multiplicative buff. Sad day for Singed Ring, still decent. You're still going to want to use it for dot builds, but I think most other builds aren't going to bother with it anymore. Continuance, that's what it is. So Stone of Continuance also got hit, so now it's only 15% skill duration instead of 25%. That's a decent dent to it, but I guess that's why we have the new Invoker trait now. That kind of sucks. I'm not actually sure if this ring is going to be worth the ring slot. It might be easier just to run like Pawn Stamp for reduced cooldown. I think depending on how long the the skill duration is, it might just be more effective to get cooldown reduction. Oh, and Xania's Malice also got nerfed. 30% weak spot damage bonus to 20. Still, honestly, one of the better rings out there. But I think now Ring of Flawed Beauty is going to be the one. Actually, just use both of these. Ring of Flawed Beauty and Xania's Malice. Still some of the best rings for weak spot stuff. Yeah, another expected nerf, though. Okay. Scrolling through the rest of this. Okay, so that's all the significant ring changes. Overall, mostly nerfs to basically everything we were using. Like literally every ring and every build I used got hit. Mod builds are in shambles. Crit stackers are going to be hit really hard. Your crit damage multipliers are going to get gutted pretty hard. Swapper builds are high on life. Dot builds are looking a little sad. Let's go into relics. Couple relic change. I mean, I don't really use this relic. You can look through these relics. It's not too significant. There's like 4 relic changes. Not the ones I use. I'll let you look through those. Relic fragments. There's apparently going to be a much bigger patch and relic framework rework thing coming soon. So this is going to be like a foundation to that. So not the whole relic fragment changes yet. Only a couple changes though. Basically, all the good relics got nerfed. Crit damage, skill duration. That sucks. All right, let's hope the future rework is good. I was hoping we'd get like a mod generation fragment since we don't have that, but maybe later. Moving on. All the good concoctions got nerfed too, it seems. Meat Shake lost a little bit of damage reduction from 8 to 6.5%. Mudtooth's tonics and stuff went from 25 stamina health down to 20. That kind of hurts. Spread and Recoil concoction got reduced from 25 to 20%. Alchemists are in tears right now. Honestly, that's kind of minor across the board, but like tank builds are going to be hit pretty hard. Out of left field, pipe bombs got nerfed. What for 250? Oh my god, they lost 200 base damage. My babies. I actually played like a grenade build, and our modded archetype, the soldier, was grenade focused, but he killed grenades. Was that the only person actually used grenades for damage? That sucks. Why? I don't see the point of that. And then we have some miscellaneous fixes. All right, that sucks. Ah, man. Okay. So let's digest all this really quick and round up the biggest changes and see how some of the builds are affected. I'm probably just gonna make a cut for this. All right, so starting with Hugs crit stacking builds. Assuming we're using the same skills and stuff and gear we were before, using Hunter's Mark, Whetstone, Xania's Malice, Atonement Fold, Probability Cord, Momentum, and let's say Monarch. So basically, for total Hugs builds, looks like they're going to be losing about 17.5% crit chance, 30% of their crit damage, and 10% weak spot damage. It's a pretty significant hit. Basically, if you were to compare it now and before, it's going to be like playing the build, but you're not using any ring slots, essentially. It's a pretty big hit. We may just actually want to go for pure crit chance now, rather than stack crit chance and crit damage, because crit damage is going to lose its effectiveness if you don't have 100% crit chance. We might have to just do something else, but those builds are going to get hit pretty hard. Mod spam builds, such as, Mod Swapper, and I guess even some dot builds, kind of. But they lost 100% mod power generation from Archon, and 25% mod power generation from Burden of the Follower, and 10% mod cost reduction from Prophecy. And since they typically ran crit stacking, they're also affected by the hit to like Whetstone and Probability Cord and Burden of the Gambler. And less damage also means less mod generation, but they did gain like 25% mod power per second from Archon. So big thing about mod generation though, like the prime perk that the Archon had, is that it affected basically everything we did that used to generate mod power. So like Cartographer's ring was like 8 mod power before, but it was 16 when you had Archons buffed now. It's 10 now, but it's still a huge nerf. Likewise with feedback, we are going to get 15% mod damage as power back now, which is more than we had before. It was like 10%. But because we had like 125% more mod power generation, it's actually a loss of feedback generation as well. So again, this affects everything, even like power leak trait on Archon and power creep. So overall, we have significantly less mod generation. I don't see how mod builds are surviving this, to be honest, but we're going to have to test them in game to be sure. We don't know what kind of DLC items exist, but that's bad. Now for the dot builds, or even builds that utilize dot setup with Ahane Crystal, Miasma lost 30% of its dot damage. Fetid Wounds, Twisted Wounds, and Tainted Blade also got their damage cut basically in half. Tainted Blade is now basically worse for Energized Net Coil. It's still like a loss. Tainted Blade was actually used more for Energized Net Coil and clearing. It's a bit lost now. It might still work out, but it did lose a lot of its top end damage. Net Coil lost 5% status damage, and whatever the explosion rework ends up being could be a big nerf. We lost like 20% multiplicative damage from the Ahane Crystal in exchange for like 16% additive damage, and we lost 10% multiplicative damage from the Singed Ring in exchange for 12% additive. We also lost a lot of mod power generation. You need to fuel the dot spam for like Nebula and Hotshot or whatever you were using, so that can hurt the sustain of them as well. I'm going to expect these builds to drop from like 4 to 5k DPS where they were before down to like 3, maybe 3.5, could be even less. Like, it's gonna be hard to tell. Dot builds are hurting too. Melee builds, they got a big buff this patch. While Stonebreaker is dead, World's Edge still exists, and Feral Judgment is still really good, and the One True King Mace is still amazing even before. Overdrive's 25% crit damage loss is going to sting a little bit, as well as the 15% crit damage loss from Probability Court and Gambler. But that's the price we pay, I guess. 40% total crit damage loss is going to be pretty fat. We may not want to go for crit damage stacking anymore. Again, we might just run Opportunist for max crit chance and focus on faster attack speeds, which is still multiplicative damage, or just base damage stacking. I'm interested in trying like a Ritualist Scythe Shocker setup now at least, but Melee's got some more options. It's probably still going to be really good. It just lost crit damage essentially. Dadbot, Bulwarks, and tank builds got a slight nerf. The concoctions got hit pretty hard, more than anything else for those builds. But the loss of damage from the Whispering Marble and the Dried Clayton Ring kind of hurt. The buffs of the guns themselves may probably make up for that. I'm not really concerned with the survivability there because I think they were kind of overcapped on their DR and stuff before, but now I think they should just be a little bit weaker. Shotgun Swapper builds are basically ecstatic right now. While we did lose some crit and crit damage, same as like Hugs builds, we lost the same 17.5% crit chance. We lost the 30% crit damage and 10% weak spot damage. But we gained was more refund from Provisioners and Deep Pocket Rings. We also gained 20% multiplicative damage from the Onyx Pendulum, which is a pretty fat increase. Unfortunately, none of the mutators we have or they got changed really helped Shotgun Swapper setup at all, so we did kind of get hit there a little bit indirectly. Overall, I think the multiplicative damage should even out the loss of crit and crit damage, since I don't think we were even crit cap before on Shotgun Swapper builds. But we should have much better sustain on the ammo, so honestly, they might come out ahead. And there are some other builds I still want to test, such as, Sack Summoner, Havoc Loop, Skill Loop, even with the reduced crit chance, Infinite Sidewinder, Ring of Spear spam, Rot Arrow, but I'm going to need to do a lot of testing in game with that. But that's basically all the thoughts on the patch notes. It's going to be hard to tell what builds are actually going to need to be made since we have no information on the new items and the new weapons coming in the DLC, because we still have to go through all that stuff. But just from what I can see, pretty much any good build before got hit pretty hard. I recommend trying to run probably Havoc Loop, Pure Engineer Handler, or Shotgun Swapper to get through the DLC. I think those are going to be like the 3 good ones. Thought builds might be okay. They're probably going to be fine, but the damage is a little bit less. It depends on how much HP like the DLC enemies have. If they are like bloated values, Thoughts might feel bad, but it could still be okay. But again, we don't know what we're getting in the DLC. This is just changes to stuff we have existing, so there's no point in going full panic mode. I was expecting a big shakeup. It looks like all the good stuff got hit, so we're gonna, have to change everything we do. I had mentioned before that I was looking forward to, seeing a shakeup, so I'm glad we did. We'll have to see when the dust settles what everything's looking like. But anyway, thank you all for listening or watching or whatever. I know this has been a long one, a lot of patch notes. Sorry about my allergies and stuff. I've just been dying over here. But we got to go dive into the DLC, collect all that stuff, and find out, what builds are actually the best. Everyone enjoy the DLC and everything it has to offer before we dissect it and whittle down to like 10 usable items like we always do. Stay tuned for that. And of course, I'm going to be posting vids out there once we get all the items and, where to collect them and all that stuff. Once I figure that out at least. But yeah, anyway, thanks again. Peace. Thank you all for watching. See ya.